Voting in progress.
All right, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to call the May Alameda County Water District Board meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Director Akbari?
Here.
Sorry.
Here. Available.
Weed? And Huang.
Here. Next item is salute to the flag. Director Akbari, would you do the honor for us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next item is public comments. Members of the public may address the board on any issues not listed on the agenda which are within the purview of the Alameda County Water District. There'll be a 5-minute time limit. Members of the public who wish to address the board on a scheduled agenda item will be given the opportunity to do so. I see we have one members of the public that wish to make a comment. Welcome, sir. Would you identify yourself?
Is it on?
Yes, it
Anyway,
is.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you all
We
right.
can hear you.
My name is Sandy Figures. I'm a longtime geologist in the Bay Area. I'm also a longtime director of Zone 7 Water District. But I'm getting up in ages, nothing much. I've got to get rid of a lot of stuff. And I've been going through it and I found a map. I think you would really, really enjoy. It is the 1875 school map, first really done map in this of your entire district, and it shows the streams in pristine condition so you can see exactly what this place is. I gave a set of it for Zone 7, and the only thing I request is that you frame it and put it in an area. And it's called a school map because that was 1870s public allowed to fund schools. And there, if you look closely, you'll find a couple of tiny schoolhouses in 3 or 4 color, and it's exquisite detail. You can, the people of Zone 7, you can sit it out an hour
And just stare at it.
Yes, what's that?
Well, we love maps, as you can imagine, and our walls are adorned with maps all over the place, and we have people who love to study old maps. So this is fantastic. We will definitely be staring at it closely, and if you would think that it'd be best framed and made available to the public, or in public, we've got some space for that.
Yes, it's good.
Yeah, this is great. This is a surprise.
Yes.
And it's nearing our 111th birthday. So this is like a birthday present.
To this thing.
Sandy, it's so nice to see you around. I thought you had moved away from the community.
I have been medical issues for almost a year.
So I
And
am
it laid me out.
I am going to jump in a little bit.
Well, it's so nice to see you.
See, yes.
So Director
The
Sethy,
only thing I've lost a lot of weight, but I do not recommend the method.
that's my suggestion. So Director Sethy, if you want to have this conversation, I will be more than glad. Let's have a 5-minute break so we can catch up if you want to do that.
No, Or, yes,
Say hi.
haven't seen you in a long time either.
No.
Same place.
All right,
Yes.
we're going to go find a 6-minute break and say we'll come back at 6:10 because it sounds like there's a lot of conversation going on.
I wanted to say hi.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Personal friend.
And enjoy the map. I found if it's on a wall, a public, you will find people staring. And it needs to be looked at.
Yeah, some staff are gonna wanna devour the information before it finds its way to a wall, but, yes, we appreciate it.
But the other thing is the penmanship. That's all hand done,
Thank you.
and it's exquisite.
Thank you very much. I know we have a second member of the public in attendance. I wish we would.
Bye.
Oh, before that, thank you very much. So let the record reflect that at 6:05 during the meeting, doing this. 6:03, actually, 05 now.
I think the speaker on the podium needs to be drawn closer to the speaker,
Yeah, the mic.
Mike.
Okay, so I have this little chart and it's for the annual acre feet of water delivered per year to ACWD from 2011 to 2020, because the more recent data wasn't really published. Now, I think these are the right numbers, but if I'm wrong, let me know. And then the percentages. So then you plot the percentages versus the numbers, and they don't exactly make a straight line, but they did make an effort to kind of line up. So that's good. I thought it was not if I, what I recalled, it was not even an effort, but it is an effort. If you look at there is something of a line in there. And then the main thing with this is that if the table lay allocations, they're very simple. They tell you, we got this, it's just clear as day. And then you look at the data and it's not that simple and it's not that clear. Like if you under their system, if they had a 0% allocation, you'd be getting 0. But under the reality, it looks like if you extrapolate down to 0, you'd still get like 4,000 or 5,000 acre feet, which is okay, good. That's kind of, you don't want people to starve to death or run or die of thirst or whatever. But and then when it goes up to the top, it seems like it's getting up to like close to 20,000 acre feet, maybe around here. Now this, I'm sure that the graphs vary if you look at a different customer or different, right? But for here, seems like it tops out about 20,000, but that, and there were some year when they got it up to the 85% allocation or whatever. So anyway, you extrapolate it out to 100%, it still goes to 20,000, but the maximum allocation supposedly on paper is 42,000. Then I'm like, oh, why can't we get 42,000 ever? But maybe, and here again, it's the difference between theory and reality. In reality, maybe ACWD has no need for 42,000 in any year. So maybe that's why, or whatever. There's probably more real good reasons for what's on the chart. And so then another thing, table allocations are a little bit under 50% on average in the last 5 or 10 years, in the last 10 years, under 50%. They said that it's over 50%, but and of course, with more recent years, they're tightening it up, so they're giving you less and less. You're not really getting. It used to be easy to get big numbers, but now it's hard because of environmental things and restrictions. Anyway, so at that number, when in the middle of the graph, if you're around 50% allocation, we're getting this district gets around 12,000 acre feet, which is not a big number. It's not half of 42,000. It's 12,000, which is 29% of 42,000, whatever it is. So just to conclude, what the state is doing with the table A allocations, nobody should go along with the simple story about percent. And the story is not that simple, not here, and especially a lot less simple. It's especially, if I did this graph for Santa Clara Valley Water District, Valley Water, it would be very strange. But this is kind of an understandable graph, but still, it's not simple.
Thank you. Do we have any other members of the public in the room that wish to address the board? I'm not seeing anybody. Before I move to online, it's my fault. We
No,
did not do
you're-
the housekeeping practice, so please, Mr.
There's not a
Stevenson.
problem at all. And normally I'll just do a few words in terms of how to participate in our board meeting. For those folks in the room, you've already figured it out. You approach the podium at the appropriate time. For those participating remotely, note that the meeting agenda, staff reports, and presentation materials for this meeting are all available on the district's website at acwd.org. And you can reference the instructions at the top of the agenda for how to participate using the controls in the Zoom app or your dial pad if participating by telephone audio. And this meeting is being recorded and will be made available to the public for future viewing. And that completes my truncated housekeeping remarks. And at this time, I don't see anybody online.
Perfect. All right, then let's move on to the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to add any items to the consent calendar?
I'll make the motion to add items 5.1 through 5.4 to the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Huang.
Aye. Do I have a motion to move the consent calendar as amended?
I'll move the consent calendar as amended.
Second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Huang.
Aye. Moving on, next item is item 5.5.
That's right. Item 5.5 is our marquee item for staff anyway, for our board meeting this evening. This is authorization to increase maximum contract amount for the leased vehicle program. And there are a number of moving parts in this item, so we thought it'd be best to kind of do a little bit of a short presentation for the board and for the public so that there's full understanding of what's going on with this program. And with that, I'll turn it over to our Director of Operations and Maintenance, Dan Stevenson, no relation. Dan, did you have any opening remarks?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, everyone. Bob Marshak, our Facilities Maintenance Division Manager, will give a short presentation on the vehicle or the district's fleet management program with a special focus on the vehicle leasing program. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Marshak.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, board, members of the public and staff. As said, I'm Bob Marshak. I'm the Facilities Maintenance Manager here at the Alameda County Water District. And tonight I'll make a presentation on the Fleet Vehicle Lease Program as it pertains to Agenda Item 5.5. There we go. The district participates in a fleet vehicle lease program with Enterprise Fleet Management. This was authorized by the board in June of 2021. And the original scope in terms of the agreement were covering 62 light duty vehicles for an annual not to exceed amount of $400,000. And I'll note that was a fixed amount. So there are three primary goals of the fleet lease program. And these three are a newer fleet, fleet flexibility, and improved or reduced fleet management effort. So in terms of a newer fleet, under the lease program, the vehicles will be replaced every 5 years. Newer vehicles show improvements in terms of decreased emissions and fuel costs, decreased maintenance and repair costs, being newer vehicles and generally still under warranty, as well as increased employee safety and the benefits of newer vehicles, improved safety features such as uniform availability of backup cameras, the side vehicle detection, and similar things. In terms of flexibility, the lease program gives the district the ability to expand or reduce the fleet based on fleet needs and the business of the district. And also with flexibility comes the ability to change out the vehicle type, such as a pickup to a sedan to a pickup, and is also noted here, the ability to exchange an ICE or internal combustion engine vehicle to a electric or zero emissions vehicle. And in terms of management effort, just that flexibility, the benefits associated with newer vehicles, which I spoke of, those all contribute to overall reduced management effort for the fleet. So just briefly on the enterprise lease program, it is different than a typical retail lease. There is no early termination. There are no over mileage penalties. There are no wear and tear penalties, and the district can get out at any time. The lease is structured on a 5-year period, looking at the value of the vehicle paid over the 5-year lease period. Another benefit to the district is at the end of the lease term, when the vehicle is replaced, the district receives the net equity from the sale of that vehicle. And I'll also note that the sale of the vehicle through enterprise results in a peak valuation for the district rather than holding on to vehicles long-term, selling them at auction with very low proceeds. One of the benefits of the lease program is enterprise is able to leverage its expertise in economies of scale and selling the vehicles to harvest peak value. So now I'd like just to provide a little background on the district's fleet and hopefully provide some context for the lease program and see how it really supports aspects of the district's fleet. And so the district's fleet supports all aspects of the district's business. The district has a relatively large and diverse fleet consisting of vehicles and mobile equipment, which I've broken down into 3 categories there. There's light duty vehicles, which are what we think of the typical passenger cars or light duty pickup trucks, such as an F-150 or a smaller Ranger. Medium and heavy duty vehicles. These are typically used by our maintenance crews in facilities maintenance, as well as DMD crew vehicles, dump trucks, things like that. I'll also note that this medium and heavy duty vehicle category comes down to vehicles just as large as an F-250, which are not typically thought of as great big vehicles, but those do fall into the medium and heavy duty category. And then lastly, the district has a variety of construction and mobile equipment. This may be off-highway equipment, such as the backhoes the district uses, trailered equipment, our portable fleet of generators and pumps, wood chippers, basically any type of mobile equipment. It's a big fleet. Okay, so objectives of fleet management. So we touched on what the district has, and that's all maintained and managed by 2 fleet mechanics and a supervisor. So that's a lot to take care of. And so in that way, the benefits of the lease program are beneficial for the district. So these objectives of fleet management include availability. We need to have the equipment available when needed. Compliance. We have compliance to take care of in terms of routine inspections, preventive maintenance, as well as regulatory compliance. And then cost, minimizing cost is a goal of fleet management. Then obviously minimizing and managing risk with these 3 factors above. So there's obviously challenges with managing the fleet, and 2 of them which I'll note here are the vehicle market and regulatory challenges. In terms of the vehicle market, especially over the last several years, it's been challenging procuring vehicles with narrow order windows, extended delivery times, limited availability. The district does compete with other buyers, other utilities for similar classes of vehicles, which do have limited availability, as well as cost. We have seen a lot of change in the vehicle market related to cost. And from a regulatory perspective, what I have noted here is the California Air Resources Board, the Advanced Clean Fleets Program, which has brought some challenges in terms of managing a fleet such as the districts. There are 0 emission vehicle mandates associated with ACF. These zero emissions vehicles utilize emerging technology, and there's some performance differences and questions compared to traditional internal combustion fueled vehicles. These 0 emission vehicles require a different type of infrastructure, and obviously cost with this emerging technology is a factor. Okay, so just a little bit of background on the CARB Advanced Clean Fleets. The ACF affects the medium and heavy duty vehicles. It is a mandate, which covers vehicles over 8,500 pounds gross vehicle weight. It does require zero emissions for these vehicles. The Advanced Clean Fleets is in effect now. A transition period started January 1st of 2024 and runs through the end of 2026. There are options for compliance. What the district is looking at in terms of what we believe flexibility and manageability for the district at this time is that one of those compliance options is 50% of vehicle purchases in that medium heavy duty class must be ZEV or zero emission. And there are limited exemptions available for these vehicles also. The Advanced Clean Fleets, as it stands today, starting 2027, stipulates only zero emission vehicle purchases for all medium and heavy duty vehicles within affected fleets, of which the district is one. And again, there are limited exemptions. And then starting 2036, the Advanced Clean Fleets requires only ZEV or zero emission vehicle sales. So under this, I'll note that the district has plans and a need to replace a number of medium and heavy duty vehicles now and purchase internal combustion engine vehicles now. So to maintain our ACF compliance, the district has a need to bring in some ZEVs. So back to the lease program, where do we stand today? Well, we're nearing full original phase-in, and the lease program has been successful in meeting objectives, and these three main objectives, which I touched on, are new vehicles and the benefits which come along with them, fleet flexibility in terms of internal combustion to ZEV, as well as flexibility within vehicle types, as well as improvements in the effort to manage the fleet. And so where do we stand today in terms of costs? What I have listed there is today's cost greater than the original fixed spending authority of $400,000. However, I want to make clear that the district on an annual basis, that $400,000, which was authorized the board, we have not exceeded that on an annual basis. However, where we stand today with full phase-in on an annualized basis going forward, we do identify that that original funding is no longer adequate. So let's look at costs. What I have here is looking at cost escalation. This is a CPI factor which addresses leased cars and trucks in the US. And looking down in there, that portion around 121 where the data seems to just shoot up and jump up, that was that low number somewhere in the low 80s. That's when the lease program was initiated and the initial costs were identified, and that was approved by the board. And obviously since that time, the vehicle market and inflation in general has resulted in a lot of cost escalation. And looking at that, it's somewhere around a 40% increase or a 1.4 multiplier. And this market cost escalation has been a significant driver of the cost increases in the fleet lease program. So recapping the drivers of cost increases in the enterprise lease program, these include the vehicle market inflation, which we just looked at, the ability to have flexibility in fleet composition in terms of exchanging one vehicle type for another has resulted in some cost increases, maybe going from a standard type of vehicle such as a Ford Escape to a Ford Escape hybrid, or going from a sedan to where a pickup truck would better serve the need. Those have resulted in cost changes and increases, as well as we've identified a need to expand the program. And what that includes is adding 9 additional vehicles to that original number of 62, which the program was first based on. These 9 additional vehicles, the plan is for them to be zero emission vehicles. And we have identified a plan and a phase-in plan in 2025 and through 2026, where these 9 additional vehicles will be added. And we're adding these to achieve that compliance with the Advanced Clean Fleets program. As well as what I have noted on here, annual cost escalator. At the time that the program was initiated and approved by the board, that original amount authorized was a fixed number and did not include any kind of annual escalator to account for market changes. So in working with the procurement group, they've identified that the CPIU is the appropriate cost escalator, and that's something that would be identified and applied at the start of somewhere around the start of each fiscal year. Let's see, so just the cost breakdown. I spoke to the original maximum contract amount, which was authorized back in 2021 of $400,000. Looking at that vehicle market escalation or inflation number adds an approximate 1.4 multiplier, which adds $160,000 to that original 400. And then the fleet flexibility and the 9 additional vehicles, which are the zero emission, which I'll note those are a premium cost vehicle, add an additional $141,000, $232 per year. And then summing up those 3 numbers and just applying a 5% contingency or cost as fixed one-time fixed cost escalator at the start of this adds an additional approximately $35,000. And adding those up, we get to the annual maximum contract amount, which I'll add as a ceiling. It's not a fixed check that the district writes once per year. It's a spending ceiling, and we pay on a monthly basis for the fleet, which we actually lease. And that ceiling comes to $736,294 annually. Let's see, so staff recommendation on agenda item 5.5 is by motion, authorize an increase in the maximum contract amount with Enterprise Fleet Management, Inc. to an annual not to exceed amount of $736,294 to include an annual escalator tied to the CPIU. And that concludes my presentation. If there's any questions.
Questions or comments from the board? Director Wee?
We had this in committee, so I'm good.
Okay, first, Enterprise made a presentation to the Special District, Alameda County Special Districts Association. And as my understanding was that if one signed up with the Enterprise, went under contract, the employees of the contracting district were eligible for their Enterprise Plus program as individuals. So I would encourage us to see if that is an offer that we can inform our employees that they're eligible for.
Okay, thank you. I can certainly look into that. I'm not sure if that's something that we can participate in, but I'll note that question.
It seemed to be universal for anyone that was one of their contractors. Second, I had a discussion with them afterwards about special purpose and heavy duty vehicles, particularly the emission-free element. It's my understanding that certainly the federal government, possibly the state government, is backing off of their anticipated requirements for the heavy duty vehicles because of the lack of emission-free heavy duty vehicles on the market. So to that extent, I would encourage us to compare the two. If we're being regulatory driven, make sure that the regulations are in fact in place and will remain in place during the duration of the contract. Third was I asked them if they were considering special purpose vehicles such as vacuum excavation. And they said they were talking about it. And it's indicated that there were companies in the United States that were leasing some of these special purpose vehicles that after in a contingency environment, vacuum excavation is really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And that we look to see and identify places where we could get those type of vehicles we'll need if we have a contingency issue, not in addition to our normal operations.
Okay, if you'd like, I can respond with a little background on those items that you made, if you'd like. Starting with number 3, in terms of large specialized equipment such as a hydrovac, there, I did note those limited exemptions to the advanced clean fleet. If it's without requiring an exemption, it is still possible to buy large specialized equipment such as a hydrovac or let's say a dump trucks. They fall in still at this time classifications, which CARB has identified do have an exemption to the advanced clean fleet requirement. So hopefully that provides a little more context or background to your question 3.
Right. As long as we're aware of it and we're recognizing the additional cost of trying to, we don't have to be too green.
No, yes, and if I could just say briefly on your question number 2, the zero emission vehicles which the district is looking at leasing, through number 1, they're kind of an equivalent vehicle. They're not a large, what's thought of as an electric dump truck. They're a smaller, medium size electric transit van, which performance wise is very equivalent to a current van, and we've evaluated that, number 1, and secondly, utilizing the lease program for this is a very low cost and low risk way for the district because we're not investing in a full purchase of these vehicles, we're leasing them. Flexibility wise, we have the ability to change them out in short time if something changes with the regulation or with our fleet needs.
Right. It strikes me it'll take us, a major earthquake or something, it'll take us months, if not years, to be able to recover. And one of the limiting factors is the ability to get the higher performance vehicles here and operational.
You're correct, Director Weed, and we're considering that in this fleet management.
Thank you.
So I just have a clarification question. The item in front of the board is for the lease that we're talking about is only for light duty vehicles, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You have some pictures here in your presentation of medium and heavy duty vehicles.
Right, so the presentation is actually in 2 parts. For background, I believe staff presented our fleet management program as a whole to just provide us with a background. And however, the item that we're going to vote on is only for the lease for light duty vehicles. So there's a little bit of hybrid there, right?
That's correct. Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Comments? No? Okay. Do we have any members of the public online? I do not see any.
You have any comments?
I see no members of the public online.
Director Sethy, do you have any?
Director Akbari, you have any?
No, actually, I was gonna ask about the availability of the medium and heavy duty vehicles in the ZEV category, but I think you answered that question already, so thank you.
Okay.
Director Sethy?
I have a couple of comments and a question. If we go back to slide number 8 about the mandates, I think it's becoming quite obvious, and if you look at the discussions going on in the legislature right now, that CARB was too aggressive in these mandates, and that there's a lack of manufacturers for these medium and heavy duty vehicles. And one concern I have is that even, and you pointed it out, is availability and competing with other agencies. Well, this puts the manufacturers in a situation of control over pricing, where they can actually maximize the gross margin that they're getting on any vehicle. And it becomes a competitive bid against agencies to even be able to procure a truck. So you've heard me say this before. I don't, you have political appointees on CARB that are not coming out of industry or government agencies and are not being realistic on their mandates that they're giving. So I have concern there. Number 2, I did provide our general manager this morning, because we had our committee meeting on Tuesday, with more background on the opportunities, thinking long-term between now and 2040 to highly consider hydrogen vehicles with fuel cells. And we have a hydrogen fuel cell station right down here on the corner of Blake Howe and Brimmer, across from Irvington, the Valero station. Fremont City Council approved another one last year, along with the California Energy Commission, which is down in Warm Springs. It has yet to go in, but it's approved on Warm Springs Boulevard. And CEC is saying that within only 5 years, there will be a 6-time increase in the number of hydrogen stations, especially in the Bay Area and Southern California. So I would ask us, and if we're looking long-term, and we know we have to replace a large number of vehicles, there are many advantages to going with hydrogen fuel cell over batteries. The third thing is, we approved an item earlier tonight on the agenda, which was item 5.4 on the consent calendar for $996,000 for 3+2 Ford vehicles. But as I understood it at the Tuesday committee meeting, the Water Quality and Operations Committee, we are also considering the purchase of a hydrovac vehicle, a supplementary vehicle, because we only have one.
That's correct.
So is that going to be a separate approval that comes to the board? Because that's like 850,000 or something.
That's correct. We anticipate probably in a couple months out, coming back to the board with some additional vehicle purchases.
Okay, so I want to make it clear so that the public understands we're approving $1 million plus probably another 850 coming up, plus the 735 right now. We're getting well over $2.5 million in a few months for vehicle replacement. And this is only for 5 + 9 + 1. And we have over 65 vehicles in our fleet. So,
Well, yeah, just there's a little squinting over here because we're kind of mixing the issues a little bit. This particular contract is about leasing, the overall leasing program. So we're not purchasing those 9+ vehicles here.
no, I'm talking about the overall cost.
Yeah, so if you add the leasing and the purchases, light duty, medium and heavy, yes, over the next, well, I mean, this is an annual number here, but yes, it's expensive.
Between now and the end of next year, we're spending between $2.5 and $3 million. That's my point. So going back to the presentation here. I think I'm good with my comments here, and I will approve this. I support going forward, but as I said in my memo this morning, please keep an open mind to the trends that are occurring in the hydrogen fuel market.
Okay.
Could I ask you a
Thank
question on the slide that's up here?
Yes.
You have a comment saying that 50% of all purchases, and this includes MHD vehicles, must be from 24 to 26, into 20, year and a half from now, must be zero emission vehicles. And then 27, all medium and heavy duty vehicles must be zero emission. This contract does not include medium and heavy duty vehicles.
That's correct. The lease program is only for light duty.
But we still have this other issue to address in subsequent meetings and purchases as to whether we can wait till the last minute to see if they'll drop provide an exemption or drop the requirement.
That's correct.
Thank you.
My guess is there are not going to be any vehicle or very few vehicles available in 2027.
Director Gunther?
I feel like I should say something because I said quite a bit in the committee meeting. My lack of comments does not mean I support what CARB is doing. Completely the opposite. However, the law is the law, and I hope that Sacramento does something. Like I said before, if you had heard the committee meeting, you'd realize where I stand on this. I've had personal dealings with CARB in the past. I truly hope that they listen. I don't hold out hope. Maybe the legislator or the governor will listen. So I just want to say that my silence wasn't that I agree with what's going on. In fact, it's the opposite, but the law is the law.
I have one last comment to recognize here. I think you may have seen in the news this past week, the fact that 2 of our 5 oil refineries are closing down, which is going to leave us with 3. We're going to have a severe gas shortage of refined gasoline in the state. And people are estimating, USC was one estimate today of $8.44 a gallon by the end of next year. And prices are going to be escalating. California is by far going to have the most expensive gasoline prices in the nation. It's probably going to, if we're not already in a recession, buttress the recession even worse. But where I'm really disappointed, I'm hoping that Aqua and CSDA, other organizations that we work with, will petition the legislature to offer tax credits, because they got rid of all the tax credits even for personal vehicles. And what we've seen is a plunge in statewide EV sales across all manufacturers. And this is not healthy. If you want to encourage the replacement of vehicles that are ZEV, then provide the incentives in place to make the transition. That's it.
Thank you, Director Sethy.
Taxes.
All right.
I know.
Director Akbari, do you have any comments? Okay, I just want to clarify that this is a contract. We're talking about lease that we are going for annual cost of $736,000, $294 to lease 71 light duty vehicles. Correct? If my math is right, 62 plus 9 would be 71. All right, so we're only talking about lease. I know we kind of.
If I can jump in, so the original contract for the 62 vehicles for the 400,000 that Mr. Marshak referenced was for light duty. We're adding 9 vehicles that actually fit into the medium duty category. So this is expanding the lease program, or the intent is to expand the lease program to include other vehicles as needed that the program gives the flexibility to add to. So
Thank you. All right, with that, Mr. Ruth, do you have any comments for us?
With this program, normally I'm against all these kind of lease things and fancy financing, but with all this regulatory stuff, very confusing. I'm very confused. And then with all the imported parts, these things all use a lot of imported parts, even though they look like they're US made. So they, they're 20, 40, what, I don't know, % imported parts in there. And so I don't know what's going to happen, and maybe it's better to use these kind of arrangements that will give you some, maybe they'll give you some kind of a better access to cars, because people are. And then as far as the hydrogen goes, Airbus is full of engineers. I mean, I don't know how many zillions of engineers they have. And they had this idea they were going to have hydrogen planes in 10 years or something. And they kept sticking to this story, almost like Tesla does when they tell you they're going to do. And for 5 years or so, they kept saying, hydrogen's right around the corner, right, and 10 years. And then now they're saying, all of a sudden they say, oh, it's more like 20 or 25 years. And yeah, for all those things, forget all that. We're going to reassign all those engineers, not all, but some of the engineers we had working on this stuff. And we're going to do something else. We're not telling you what that is yet, but it's not going to be hydrogen for a long time. And the airplanes are harder than cars, I understand, but also hydrogen at $15 a kilogram is something like $15 a gallon, or it costs like 3 times more today to buy hydrogen and run a vehicle per mile than it does to
No,
buy regular stuff.
the fuel cost is 3 to 4 times, but you get a lot more mileage out of it.
But that,
And the
they,
hydrogen car vehicle industry,
Yeah.
light vehicle industry is growing very swiftly in California.
Yeah.
Multiple manufacturers.
I'm a stick in the mud, I'm a skeptic.
Thank you, Mr. Abreu. With that, any other questions or comments from the board? If not, do I have a motion to move staff recommendation?
I'll make the recommendation since Director Gunther and I reviewed this extensively in our committee.
I'll
I'll
second.
recommend the staff recommendation approval.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Huang.
Aye. With that, move on to reports. Item 6.1
Plus card.
is board committee reports. Any questions or comments from the board on the committee reports? I am not seeing any interest, and our one member of the public has left the room. And we do not have anybody online, so then that's moving on to item 6.2, operational reports. Any questions or comments from the board on the operational reports? I'm not seeing any interest, and we do not have any members of the public in attendance, either in person or online. Then, let's see, 6.3, we do not have any staff presentation, so 6.4, general manager's report.
Okay, there's a couple of things we wanted to just get out there for the board and the public. First of all, item 6.4.1, board meeting calendar updates. Just wanted to announce sort of publicly, make sure that we're all on the same page, that the scheduled start times for some of our published board meeting dates have been, they've been updated on our website. The board has received our sort of updated meeting invitations and so forth, but wanted to make sure it's clear to everybody involved that these are some of our workshops that are coming up, most of our workshops. The board meeting dates or the board meeting times, regular board meetings are not changing. Those will continue to start at 6 p.m. For most of our board workshops through the end of the calendar year, they'll have a new start time. We're moving from a normal start time of 4 to now 5:30 p.m. The one exception to that is our special board meeting on May 21st. And that's the meeting that we'll have off-site. That'll be down in the Fremont Event Center where we're having our student video contest event and so forth. So that meeting is starting at 4:30. And that time is really important to our students and our educators and so forth. So we had to maintain that 4:30 start time. But for the other board workshops, they'll all start at 5:30. Our website has been updated. The calendar on the website's been updated. We have a sort of written schedule on the website. All that's been updated, but I just wanted to make sure the board was clear so that we see you all at the right time and you're not showing up at 4 p.m. and then waiting around for an hour and a half. And same with the public. So any questions about that before moving on to the next item? Okay, next item is 6.4.2. This is related to upcoming elections for the Aqua Region 5 Chair, Vice Chair, and Board Member seats for our local regional Aqua section. Those elections, that election will be held on July 21st. Nominations are due on June 20. And they need to be accompanied by a resolution from the member agency. So what we're planning to do right now is want to make sure you all are aware of this, that this opportunity is upcoming. And then we plan to seek any specific interest in running for one or all of those seats at the May 22 budget workshop so that we can prepare an item, if as appropriate, for the board on on June 12th. That's our regular board meeting on June 12th. That'll give us time to submit the materials and so forth for the election. We can nominate one of you for one or all of the seats. We can nominate several of you for different roles. You can only nominate one person for each particular seat. But we'll want to seek your feedback and your interest on May 22. I do know Director Weed has reached out and indicated that he's interested in running for all three of those, chair, vice chair, and board member. And so we do know there's some level of interest there, but I'll formally ask for your interest on May 22. How's that work for you all?
I'll let you know right now, I'm not interested in any of the three. I've got too much on my plate.
I figure that might be the case.
I would note that the chair and vice chair of each of the regions sits on the board of directors of Aqua.
Right, which is another set of elections coming up,
At
right?
one time, they tried to make it only the chairs, and that didn't fly.
Well, I
Too many
would,
meals to buy.
I would love it not to share.
Okay.
I can actually give a firm.
Well, you
answer
guys
as
are gonna
well.
make this really easy.
I will be more than happy to support Director Weed for the position, but I don't think.
Same here.
It's down to you,
Thank
President
you.
Huang.
I would love to support Director Weed. for all
John's
three
got my vote.
positions.
Yeah.
All right, well, who knows? We may have an item then on the May 22 agenda. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Next up, we have a quick note from Director of Finance and Administration, Mr. Wunderlich. Some good news.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, members of the board, staff, and public. The Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada has established the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting program to encourage and assist state and local governments to go beyond the minimum requirements of generally accepted accounting principles and instead prepare an annual comprehensive financial report that really shows the spirit of transparency and full disclosure and really goes beyond the minimum requirements to provide a great deal more information about not just the finances, but also operations of the organization. And I'm pleased to report that our ACFR for the fiscal year ending in 2024 was submitted and again has been recognized, and we've received formal notice of that recently. And so it's a great accomplishment of the accounting team, but also everyone throughout the district who's really involved with making sure we maintain appropriate practices, adhering to policies and so on. And so I'm pleased to be able to report that I think this is the 27th year in a row. I'm not exactly sure,
Starting to
but
lose track.
something like that.
Generations.
What's your team?
Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
We actually would like to sneak one more general manager's report in. It's late breaking news. You know, we have competitions here, and when Mr. Wunderlich gets to report on a really cool award, then other people want to report on theirs. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Awoke, who can share some more good news.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Why not? Competition only makes us better, right?
Great.
Yes, good evening, board members and community members. I'm happy to report that the district's PFAS treatment system project was awarded the 2025 Project Achievement Award from the Construction Management Association of America Northern California chapter under the Infrastructure Project of the Year under $49 million category. The Project Achievement Award highlights the best of the best, as they say on their website. Those projects that serve as an example to the industry and are true pinnacles of excellence and innovation. As the board knows, this award is a testament to not only the overall successful management and execution of this complex project, but also the effective collaboration and coordination among internal stakeholders, the contractor, the construction inspection team, the project designer, and all others that were involved in the successful implementation of this project. As you know, there are so many people involved at the district in this project and in its successful execution. But I would like to give special thanks to Ms. Carrie Smith, who was the project manager from the beginning, Mr. Ricky Vera, Mr. Ben Egger, and Ms. Erika Ipagunta for their relentless work on this project. But I also want to recognize our water production team in operations, the groundwater team in water resources for their continued engagement and support of the project. And I also want to thank you, the board, for your continued guidance and support as we strive to respond and mitigate the impacts of PFAS over the past several years. So I think the district is a true winner in this project. We will send a representative in late June to receive the award on behalf of the district at the Project Award Scholarship and Industry Celebration event in Sacramento. And that's the end of my report.
I don't know if staff has considered it, but I would think this might qualify for submission for a Claire Hill Award. And I have one question. Did this come with a check?
Not this one, but we'll keep trying. Yeah.
Well, didn't we have some grants or a forthcoming grant?
Well, we had some work with our federal legislative contingent on some community project block grant funding that has fallen through recently. So we're still working, but at this point, we've written most of the checks, but we're still working.
Yes, and we do have.
Good work to everybody, the whole team.
Thank you.
Other general managers comment?
Oh, I know something else. This might make a good presentation to the South Bay Engineers Club.
It would make a great presentation at the South Bay.
Yes.
Yes, we'll definitely think about that.
That completes our general manager.
All right, then let's move on to director's comments, reports, meeting attended, and agenda item requests. There are quite a few report back. So 7.1 is from Director Sethy.
Yes, I'm going to have more to bring forward at a subsequent meeting because I've been going back and forth with questions to the presenters. But basically, under Governor Brown, we got rid of redevelopment agencies in California. And John and I have been representing all the special districts in the county on the Alameda County Countywide Oversight Board for closing down all of these redevelopment agencies and returning back the tax increment that they were taking from us back to the special districts. Now the legislature has creatively come up with a new version of redevelopment districts called climate resilience districts that use tax increment funding all over again to fund the activities of what we were trying to get rid of. And John and I, at our recent oversight meeting, which is 7.4 here, brought it up, and the county is extremely upset with all this because they don't want to go through the whole rigmarole again. They call it the whack-a-mole scenario. Every time they suppress it, then it comes back up. So as I understand it, there are now 19 different climate resilience districts in California. One of the more notable ones nearby is in Santa Cruz. And under the tax increment financing, they are taking the tax increment that would go to the special districts and other community colleges, other government agencies to support the financing costs of what they're doing. And in the case of Santa Cruz, and I'm only going to make one example here, they're doing it to rebuild the boat yachts that suffered a lot of damage, the pier in Santa Cruz, and Capitola, and also for Sea Cliff reinforcements and some other attenuated public works projects. So I'm going to keep my eye on this. I'm going to bring it back when I have more information. But right now I find this very disturbing that what Governor Brown was successful in getting rid of, we are now putting a new name around it and creating a problem where And this is serious business. This is why Governor Brown shut it down, because it was Peter stealing from Paul. And the school districts weren't getting their proper share of money, or community colleges, or special districts. So, stay tuned for more.
Thank you. Item 7.2, Director Wee, report back on the Aqua Board meeting in Sacramento, April meeting.
Aqua Board meeting Sacramento, I had been on that board back in the mid-2000s going to regular meetings. I attended as the alternate to John Valero, who is from Valley Water District. I mispronounced his name. And he was not able to make it. They had a meeting on that Friday, so I went in his stead. Found it interesting. They took note that the Bay Delta plan, which Chuck was very actively involved with, I asked about the effects of sea level rise, and they said, not to worry, the plan is only until 2035. It is no change. It's the same things that we've learned in each of our Aqua meetings, and there were no particular initiatives that took place in that. Thank you.
Right, so item 7.3, report from Director Sethy and Weed on the Aqua
Mind if I
Region
take the lead here?
Board tour.
Okay, so Director Weed and I both attended the Aqua Region 4 tour and program in Manteca. It was a fantastic program. I have provided a copy of the presentation that was given after we went on the tour in the morning, afternoon presentation.
Yeah, and just for the record, that presentation you're referencing, there are copies in the back of the room. There also, it's posted on the website. Thanks for providing it. It's on the website under supplemental materials for this meeting, just so the public is aware.
I think this subject is going to get a lot more notice in Aqua and other water organizations. The subject matter was dealing with the predation of salmon by invasive species like largemouth black bass and striped bass, pikefish, and other invasive species. And what the scientists are telling us is that between 2018 and this year, they only identified 9 salmon that originated in the Stanislaus River returning back to their home ground. 9. And at the same time, they're finding no short and long fin smelt, delta smelt. And it's become apparent, at least to these scientific organizations that have been working on this active area of the San Joaquin River and the tributaries, which are chiefly the Stanislaus, the Tuolumne, and the Merced River, that the predation by bass as they're entering the delta in a very narrow area, they're consuming all of the salmon. And they're even going up the tributaries where as soon as the eggs are milked, they sense it and then they go eat all the eggs. And they were showing that as you look over the decades when we've had high flow winter events, that even despite the higher flows, we're getting the salmon populations being decimated. And the Sierra Club, the Nature Conservancy, all of the environmental groups are fighting for Tuolumne River Restoration Trust, Peter Dreckmeyer from former mayor of Palo Alto. They're all fighting for more flows of water to the Sacramento and San Joaquin rivers to restore salmon. but the scientific studies are showing the contrary evidence that that we have a man-made problem. That for many decades, the state was putting out 3 million bass a year into the Delta and only a predatory fish and only 100,000 salmon. And so the salmon are being consumed as juveniles and fries before they ever make it out to the ocean. And so they can't return. And the Sierra Club, Nature Conservancy, other environmental groups have essentially bought the State Water Board, who are all political appointees. They've bought CDFW, which used to be called California Department of Fish and Game, because they were protecting the game fishermen. And now we see the decimation of the salmon populations. So I asked some very hard questions about why the State Water Board, why CDFW, the environmental groups don't want to hear the evidence and don't want to accept the scientific evidence. And it's because the people have bought into this, the water flows idea, and are not being considerate of the real scientific evidence. And that the State Water Board members who are political appointees have so much pressure from these environmental groups that they're actually acting contrary to what the evidence is showing. The other thing is that in the state of Oregon and Washington, they have set up bounty systems for the capture of bass, pikefish, other predatory fish, where fishermen are paid by the head of fish that they return back to the angler shops. And some of them are making 250,000 a year. Boats of 4 people are making over $1 million just to get the predatory fish out of their streams. And they have no limit on catches or any time of the year that you can catch. But in California, we've done exactly the opposite. We're trying to support the game fishermen because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry really across America. And when you go to Yosemite, you pass through Manteca, you see the big pro bass shop. Well, they're all over the Delta. These are very profitable business opportunities. And they only have a window for when you can catch bass in the Delta because they want them to grow as large as possible. So eat as much salmon as you can, Mr. Bass, and then we can go out and have our competitions. So, and to see how vehemently the Sierra Club and others are fighting this is just astonishing, that they don't want to accept the science. So it was a very revealing, and this is the second time I've heard a presentation like this. The first one was at the Fall Aqua that we just had. So I'll let Director Weed add to this.
Director Weed?
The printed presentation doesn't give the stark reality that was stated by Fish Bio, which was the consultant that did these studies, extensive studies. They said that the predation is near universal, that the higher the flows, the greater the predation, and that the highest predation they found upstream was in the tributaries, where the voluntary agreements are currently planned to put, try to plant fish and generate fish. And in essence, it is, complete nonsense to proceed with either the voluntary agreements or the unimpaired flows. We're into a never land of faith-based policymaking that cannot be supported by this study and prior ones. It was earlier noted a number of years ago by the biologist for San Francisco PUC that there's been no correlation between flows and fish counts in the San Joaquin since the 1990s. Predation has taken on that much and shocking. One possible solution to addressing predation is electric fishing, which kills everything. There you go into the world of taking, you might lose a few, but there aren't that many surviving anyway of these endangered or threatened species. So one potential recommendation is to annihilate all marine life in the estuary and then trying to build it back up again.
Well, that's the idea that I expressed.
High
High voltage electricity.
drives these people crazy because it was. It's for now, to put a dollar amount on this. San Francisco claims that they're going to have to spend $4 billion in order to, because of the unimpaired flow proposal. 2/3 of that are the Bosque members, 4% of it is ACWD. 4 billion plus interest is about $8 billion. So that's over $300 million coming out of the pockets of our ratepayers for the Hetch Hetchy element alone. This is expensive. It's over $3,000 per customer, maybe closer to 4,000 for this type of environmental nonsense. And hopefully this board will take a position to try to expose the mindless bureaucracy that we have in the state water resources program.
I will add, and I think both John and I observed it, the Aqua senior staff that was there, they all went white in the afternoon presentation. They were in shock because this is the antithesis of what the senior executive staff at Aqua has been preaching to its members. And the environmental groups that were there couldn't say anything in response because this was a severe indictment of their positions. So I think we're going to hear a lot more about this, and it's surprising to me that we don't see more about this in the press, where it's taken as a very serious issue in Oregon, Washington State, British Columbia, and Alaska. But in California, we started with something, I call it a man-made disaster. This started after World War II.
And if we do take our position, I hope we put in there the actual cost just on the Hetch Hetchy component. I believe it'd be around $5,000 on the average per customer.
And there's so few salmon in the Sacramento River. If you saw the news this past week, CDFW released 3.5 million fry directly into the Sacramento River, not on the tributaries, because they're trying to overwhelm the predators that are eating them. And then CDFW delivered 10 million eggs to Coleman Hatchery to further supplement releases down the road. This is a really serious problem, and I hope all directors here and staff pay attention to future presentations like this. That's why I handed it out.
So we have quite a few more directors' reports. I am going to ask the directors to be concise because we do have closed sessions that could be extensive. So, all right.
Let me give the report for Director Weed and I on the Oversight Board. We had
Great,
one item
7.4.
One item on the agenda. It was approval for one city on closing out some books on something, and that was it. The meeting lasted about half an hour.
Okay, any comments on 7.4, Director Lee?
Pardon, what is 7.4?
That was the oversight.
That's the Oversight
meetings.
Board.
Okay, no, that's, I think Director Sethy has succinctly covered a half-hour meeting of an organization which may string out for another 20 to 30 years. Some of these things are hard to kill.
All right, moving on. Item 7.5, direct reports from Directors Akbari and Sethy on the AC Transit State of AC Transit meeting.
Go ahead.
If I take? So I'll try and keep this pretty brief, but the presentation was broken up into kind of three major sections. Number one was their post-COVID finances and ridership. The second portion was around future financing opportunities, specifically a parcel tax that will likely make it to the next ballot. And then thirdly, they focused on future projects and innovations. Kind of at a high level touched on AI and other components to improvements in driver safety and rider safety. The two things that I'll just call out that I think would be interesting for us to connect with AC Transit on. Firstly, I know I've been a big proponent of this, but I would ideally like to see some kind of a solution to the last mile between BART and ACWD. And I did bring it up with some of the AC Transit employees who said, hey, reach out to us and we'll see if there's something that we can do to help solve that issue. I'm cautiously optimistic. I would say I don't know how much progress we can make there. But the second opportunity was around just cybersecurity and AI. I had a really interesting chat with their CTO, CIO, and it sounds like they are looking at ways that they can utilize emerging technology internally to make them more efficient. And so they offered to have a discussion with our director of engineering to see if there's any synergies and see if there's ideas that we're implementing that they can take advantage of and vice versa. So I'm happy to connect to you as well if you're not already connected with their CTO. But I think that would be a good opportunity for us to just learn from them about what they're doing. And that concludes my report.
Director Sethy?
That was an excellent summary. I will just add one item where I asked a question about the cost savings of going to zero emission vehicles and their transition. And the general manager answered that it's actually cost a lot more than the gas savings that they were spending in diesel and everything. So there is a cost to society for making this transition, and it falls upon the ridership. Number two is with the transition to battery and hydrogen that they're working with, they have set up their own training facility to train the mechanics of the future that have to deal with these new technologies and new vehicles, because it's not like taking a standard mechanic from today that works in your shop and suddenly they can work on zero emission vehicles. So they have learned that recruitment is really difficult. And so they decided to spend the money to start their own in-house training program. And it's something that what I learned is that if we're going to go in that direction in the future, we're going to have to think about the same consequences.
Thank you. So next item is 7.6, reports from Director Sethy and Weed on the Alameda Creek Watershed Forum, State of the Alameda Creek Watershed Conference.
Go ahead.
Okay. It's interesting. Was little on fish. They had little to report on fish, but they did have sessions on turtles and beaver in the watershed, which ironically are not concerned with the water temperature. One of the items that came out of the conference with Region 4 was at 20 degrees Celsius and the ocean going fish are gone. And so much of our watershed in Alameda Creek is above 20 degrees Celsius. In fact, a far greater part of it. So, but they are seeking something to justify their continued interest in the watershed, and turtles and beaver appear to be the current cause du jour. Thank you.
Director Sethy?
I don't have anything to add to that, but I have two other short reports. One is it was a non-compensated day-long outing with, the, what's the trout organization called?
Cal trout?
The Salmonid Restoration
Oh.
Corps conference that was going on down in Santa Cruz, but they came and spent a day up in the Alameda Creek watershed, which ACWD was partly hosting, started at RD1. And then I went to an area I've always wanted to go see, but never had. And that is the last barrier in Alameda Creek, where they're doing the PG&E work this summer. I took a picture of it. If anybody wants to see it, my camera, phone is in the car. But that was really fascinating to see, and the whole plans for what's going to happen. It was a lot more extensive than I had ever imagined in my mind. It was like 5-6 times the project effort that I was imagining. So then we went up to Snow Regional Park and we had presentations from San Francisco. Oh, where the barrier was, we had to go through all the quarries from Calaveras Road to Alameda Creek. And I will tell you, the comparison that I have for the width of Alameda Creek at that point is like going down to King City and driving across the Salinas River. The gap is that wide. It's in no comparison to our flood control channel where RD1 is. It's humongous. And so this is the natural environment out there. And by the time you get back into the canyon, Snow Regional Park, you're down to a very narrow creek. Water was crystal clear. Leonard Ash and I walked down, and it was just a fantastic San Francisco presentation on everything that's going on in Snow Regional Park. And we learned something that we really didn't know, and that's how bad the damage was up at the Alameda Creek Diversion Dam. And they said that the damage that was done in the 22-23 winter storm, it's going to take them probably 5 years to restore that diversion point, because it was all the fish screens and everything were filled with tons and tons of gravel that came out of the watershed. And it filled up so high that all the timber, there was no timber left actually on top of the gravel. It all went over the dam. So Jeff Miller gave a great presentation on his efforts to restore beaver in the watershed. That's his next big thing that he's championing. And I bought a copy of his new book, Bay Area Wildlife. I'll pass it on for other people to read. But all in all, it was a really good day dealing with people that are all in the business of trying to restore salmon in different watersheds, including ours.
Just a quick comment. At this location where you have a very wide water river bank, the natural conditions is no surface water. It's all subsurface. They're trying to come up with some artificial process to generate some surface water to allow the fish to go up. Then they've got something called Little Yosemite. So yet another natural barrier that they're choosing to ignore. You can't make this stuff up.
I had one last report. I will
Go
be
for it.
attending the East Bay Regional Park District board meetings tomorrow. The morning meetings are occurring at Quarry Lakes Park, and the lunch and afternoon are occurring at Ardenwood. And so I will be representing us there, uncompensated, going as on my own.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from directors?
Real quick, it was noted in one side conversation at the estuary that by a director from the East Bay Regional Park District that they have executed a 5-year lease extension on Del Val Reservoir with the potential for another 2 years. And during that time, they anticipate, according to this director's presentation, they're going to shoot for 30 or more years to be tacked on. hopefully we can look at the difference. Second, there was a presentation made this week at Valley Water where they looked at various water supply systems, and I gave a copy to our staff. They gave a life cycle cost of storage with Pacheco Dam of being over $12,000 an acre foot, compared to groundwater banking of $1,100 an acre foot. That the building a reservoir, case of Pacheco or Los Vaqueros, would have been about 12 times more expensive than on a per acre foot basis on a life cycle cost than trying to identify and utilize existing groundwater banking.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Just one very quick comment. I'll mention this in our LICA committee as well, but I just wanted to say that I thought today's social media post on Instagram was
Oh, you saw
probably the best I've seen. And it just goes back to some conversations we've had during our LICA committee about utilizing reels, being more creative, and just leaning into short form content. And like doing a rap about drinking water was awesome. I just wanted to call that out.
I have to check that out.
It's a good one. You guys need to check it out after the board meeting. It's
I-
great.
All right, with that, I think I'll close the director's comment session. Next is closed session. Item 8.1 is pursuant to California Government Code, Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, agency designated negotiators at Stevenson, Jonathan Wunderlich, Amy Reeve, and Stacy Q. Employee organizations, operating engineers, local 3. Second closed session item 8.2 is pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, title General Manager. With that, we will convene to which conference room?
We'll go ahead and go to the operations conference.
Conference room at 7:27. All right, it's 8:54 and the board has returned from closed session. Council, would you do the favor of reporting back, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to give the open session reports. The board met in closed session for 2 items. First is item 8.1 pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, agency designated negotiators Ed Stevenson, Jonathan Wunderlich, Amy Reeve, and Stacy Q. Employee organization, operating engineers local 3. And in that closed session, direction was given to the agency designated negotiators. For the second closed session, item 8.2 pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, title General Manager. No action was taken in that closed session, and that concludes the open session reports.
All right, the next item is item 9.1, appoint agency designated representative for labor negotiations between the district and the general manager and unrepresented employee for possible amendment to the general manager's employment agreement. Discussion proposal from the board? Is who should be our agency negotiator?
I'd like to recommend the board president, Director Huang, and the board vice president, Director Akbari.
Is that-
Second.
Okay, so motion and second, roll call please.
Director Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Huang.
Aye. With that, then let's move on to item 10.1. It's a closed session, which is pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6. Conference with labor negotiator agency designated representatives are Judy Huang and Aziz Akbari. Unrepresented employees, general manager. With that, at 8:56, we're going to adjourn to the operations conference room again for the closed session.
My youngest is a little place up there. And
All right,
family
it's
pictures and everything.
9:18. The board has returned from closed session. 10.1. Council, would you please report back?
Sure, I'd be happy to give the open session report. The board met in closed session pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, agency designated representatives, Board President Judy Huang, and Board Vice President Aziz Akbari, unrepresented employee general manager. And in the closed session, direction was given to the agency designated representatives. And that concludes the open session report.
Perfect. With that, I'll call the meeting adjourned at 9:19. You.